Shalom, beloveds of the King. Praise Abba Yahuwah as we continue our second day, as we continue chapter 2 with the book of Isaiah and what the Father is trying to reveal and to show us as we embarked on this journey, as truly as we go and we study these prophets, we are starting to understand the Father's heart just a little bit deeper in wanting to know what is on the Father's heart. What does He speak against His people? What are the promises that He promises? And what is it that He is saying to His people? That could line up very much, these prophetic words line up very much with what Father would be saying to us in this hour. So everybody's running around wanting to hear a word from the Father. But isn't it amazing? They don't want to read the books of the prophets, where Father has already spoken and where Father is still speaking. And then we understand why maybe the Father is not giving us another word, because the word that He's going to give us is just going to be the word that has already been spoken through the mouth of His prophets all these thousands of years ago. And so tonight we continue in an embarkment on our book of Isaiah. And so today we are reading Isaiah chapter 2, the word that Yehoshua, the son of Amoz, saw concerning Yehudah and Jerusalem. And it shall be in the latter days that the mountain of the house of Yahuwah is established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all the nations shall flow to it. Praise Abba. We're seeing a bit of this fulfillment already, as we see many of the nations around the nations of the world that are flocking to Eretz Israel, to the mountain of Yahuwah, to be able to come to a place. There's no temple there, but there is still the remains of the Western Wall where they will go. People come from all over the world, stand at the Western Wall and pray. And what a beautiful sight it is, in order to be able to stand there at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you see these birds, these swallows, and they are singing and chirping because of the open heaven, because of the prayer that takes place in this place. There's an absolute portal of prayer, intercession, praise, and worship to the Father at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. And many people shall come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahuwah, to the house of Eloah, of Yaakov, and let Him teach us His ways, and let us walk in His paths. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah, and the word of Yahuwah from Jerusalem." So you see, everything comes out of Zion. And so the Torah comes out of Zion. And so the ways of Yahuwah has been restored by His people, by the Jewish people, yet they too have gone astray by adding to His Torah what is not there, and putting a heavy yoke upon His people, which is already what Yehoshua spoke when he came up against the Pharisees and the Sadducees. He said, "You have put a heavy yoke upon my people, because my Father's yoke is light. His Torah is light. The Torah that He gave us is light. It's not a burdensome." But if you really sit down and you listen to the Jewish Talmudic ways and what is all allowed and not allowed for you to be able to walk as a Jew, it is a heavy yoke, because it's so many man-made customs and traditions that is not in the Word. And so they have made up their own laws. And then we wonder why so many of the Jewish people have fallen by the wayside, because it's too much of a burden for them to be able to keep. But this is where the whole thing is, that it says, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahuwah, to the house of Eloah, and let him teach us. Let him teach us his ways. So you see, Yahuwah is the one who's wanting to teach us his ways by his Ruach. And so this is the prophetic word that is spoken already in Jeremiah that we read in Jeremiah chapter 31. And we have a look at Jeremiah chapter 31. And when it says, and no longer, Jeremiah 31 verses 34, and no longer shall they teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, know Yahuwah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares Yahuwah. For I shall forgive their crookedness and remember their sin no more. Because why? He is the one who's wanting to teach us. So you see, everything comes from the foundation, which is basically going to come out of Zion. And so Father is going to return us back to Zion. And that is what he talks about when he says that he takes the 144,000 and he puts their feet on Mount Zion. And so this is why there's a restoration once again, where he's going to raise up this house, where he's going to raise up a people, because he turns around and he says in Revelation chapter 14, and I looked and I saw a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 having the Father's name written upon their foreheads. And so they were sealed with the Father's name, and they once again returned to Mount Zion. And so this is why the Father is saying, out of Zion comes forth the Torah. And so this is always the scripture that has stayed with me, so that if I look to a new moon or I look at things, I always look at Zion, because the law comes forth from Zion. His Torah comes forth from Zion. And so he's the one that is going to teach us his ways, and so that we will be able to walk in his paths, because out of Zion comes forth the Torah. And so praise Abba Yahuwah, that we have once again returned back to Abba Yahuwah's ways. And that is where we need to thank Brother Judah. And even though Brother Judah has gone astray, we still thank Brother Judah, because even though Brother Judah has added to the word, at least he has been able to be faithful to keep the Father's Torah, to keep the Father's ways, even if he has added things. But to them, we are ever grateful, because they've stayed faithful in order to be able to still have a land where there's no confusion. You can go there and you will know when Shabbat is, because from the close of Shabbat, so say Friday at about 4 o'clock, the transport stops running, the shops close, everything closes on a Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock, until Saturday night, until after 8, 8:30, depending on in summer, if the sun sets a little bit later, then the shops will only then open. And then you're not confused, because you know when it's Shabbat, you know when it's the Sabbath. And so Father has made sure that that has been restored for us to be able to understand and know when is the Sabbath. You just need to go to that land and there's no confusion. And he shall judge between the nations, and shall remove many peoples, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither teach battle anymore. So you see, these scriptures that we're reading in chapter 2 up to now, these scriptures are all prophetic. So they're all prophetic scriptures. So even if, so he says, and it shall be in the latter days. So you see, in the days ahead, in the prophetic days, that the mountain of Yahuwah is established on the top of the mountains, and shall be that the house of Yahuwah is established. So you see, the house of Yahuwah has not yet been established. So only when Yeshua comes, he is going to establish his hekel. Not before then. So any temple that is going to be built in the land of Eretz Israel is a man-made temple, which is where the anti-Messiah will dwell. And that is why there is a unholy remnant of people raising up, that is the Sanhedrin Council, that is trying to bring all these religions under their council, because they're going to erect this temple. But this temple is not the temple that is going to be built, because the Bible clearly tells us that it is Yahushua who is going to erect the hekel, erect the temple. And so we must understand that there's many things that is going on at the moment that is absolutely stands against the way of the Father, stands against what the Father has said, and stands against his word. And so man is trying to build this house. Man is trying to build the house. Well, it's not for man to build the house. It is for Yahuwah that is going to be the one to build the house, not man. And so if we have a look at Zechariah chapter 6, listen to what he says in Jeremiah chapter 6, verses 12. Let's just read from verse 10. Receive the gift from the exiles, from Haldai, Tobiah, Yediah, and who have come from Babel. Then you shall go the same day and enter the house of Yoshia, son of Zephaniah. And you shall take the silver and the gold, make a crown, and set it on the head of Yehoshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest. Now listen, verse 12. And shall speak to him, saying, Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, saying, See the man whose name is the branch. So who is the man whose name is the branch? This is Yahushua. And from his place he shall branch out, and he shall build the hekel of Yahuwah. So who's going to build the hekel? Yahushua is going to build the hekel. And it is he who is going to build the hekel of Yahuwah. And it is he who is going to bear the splendor. And he shall sit and rule on his throne, and shall be a priest on his throne. And the council of peace shall be between them both. So you see, any other temple that is going to be built before this time, this is only going to be in the millennial reign when Yeshua comes. But any temple that is going to be built now, this is the anti-Messiah that is going to sit in this temple. And this is a work of man's hands, once again, to exalt themselves. And so we see that this is future, where there will be no more battle, there will be no more where it says, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither teach battle anymore. So this is really a time of when Yeshua comes to be able to reign, and we will have peace for 1,000 years upon the earth. O house of Yaakov, come, let us walk in the light of Yahuwah. For you have forsaken your people, the house of Yaakov, because they have been filled from the east and practice magic like the Philistines. They are pleased with the children of foreigners. Wow. So do you see, he's saying, you have forsaken your people. So, O house of Yaakov, come, let us walk in the light of Yahuwah. Who is the light of Yahuwah? The light of Yahuwah is Yahushua. And why do they not have the light? Why do the Yehudim, why do these Jews not have the light? They do not have the light because they do not accept Messiah, Yahushua, their Messiah, who died and resurrected for them. And therefore, they are in darkness because they have not received the light. And he says, because they have been, for you have forsaken your people, because they have not received the light. And those that are being grafted in, they're not wanting to accept. Those that are wanting to come back to the land, that have Messiah Yeshua as their Messiah, they will not accept them. They will not accept the house of Israel, because they do not accept the Messiah Yahushua. And this is where the problem comes in. And for you have forsaken your people, the house of Yaakov, because they have been from the east. So you see, because they have been filled from the east and practice magic like the Philistines. Now, you need to understand that these Jews, they practice mysticism. which is the religion of Kabbalah. And this is all mysticism, which is all magic arts. Believe you me, it's all mysticism, it's all magic. And they do all these incantations in order for them to be able to go into these heavenly realms. And it's all like these magic arts, like this mysticism. And it's these religions of the East. So you see, when these young people come out of the army, they send them to they go to the Far East, and they send them to places like Tibet, and they go and meditate, and then they go into this Eastern religions, where it's all about a Buddha, and it's all about where we become our own God, where we become self-elated, where all of a sudden I'm a God unto myself. And so we must understand that what is the Eastern religions in our circle. So if we look and we see, if this is speaking to us, what is this saying? This is saying you are filled with, because they have been filled from the East. So what is in the East? The sun rises in the East. And the East is everything when they turn their back on the West, which is where the Father's presence was. So remember, the tabernacle, you face west, and that's where the Father's presence is. And that is where day begins, at west. But no, they turn their back on the Father's presence in the west, and they turn their faces towards the east, which is then sun god worship. And this is all the sun god worship. Of all the religions of the world, all the religions of the world are all about sun god worship. So it's all about the Eastern religions. And it's all about this magic, and they practice magic. So at the end of the day, it's all the sorcery that comes with it, because it's all about Baal worship. It's all about us being able to elate ourselves to become our own gods at the end of the day. And unfortunately, this is what religion is trying to bring the people to become their own gods. We are now gods. Even in Christianity, this seems to be a very popular teaching amongst the prosperity teachers, where they say we are gods. So we demand and we command because we are gods. And there's no humility before the Father. Verse 7 says, and their land is filled with silver and gold, and there is no end to their treasures, and their land is filled with horses, and there is no end to their chariots. And so here we see the arrogance and the pride of Babylon. They pride themselves in their riches, a system that gives them all these doctrines of demons, a system that puffs man up because of all their titles that they give themselves. Because listen to what it says. And their land is filled with silver and gold, and there is no end to their treasures. And their land is filled with horses, and there is no end to their chariots. And their land is filled with idols. They bow themselves to the work of their own hands, to what their own fingers have made. So you see, these scientists, they become gods. And these professors, they become gods. And these doctors, they become gods. And they are the ones that man puts their trust and their faith in. And man bows down to them because of the titles that they have received. And it's all about a system that is just to elate man and to put man on a throne, and for man not to submit and surrender to the Father. Because why would they have need of the Father when they have all these systems, all these things that has caused them to become great in their own eyes? And they look at their big skyscrapers, and they look at their big empires that they have created for themselves. And it's no different even in the church, because they got these mega churches that they have formulated to be able to elate themselves in it. And then they want to give God a title in it. Which God? Abba Yahuwah. No, it's not going to be Abba Yahuwah, the one that is going to be able to be raised up in that place. It's not Abba Yahuwah that's the one that is being raised up. It is man's work and the work of man's hands. And this is what man has been doing from the time of the Tower of Babel. It was all about man raising themselves up. Let us become like God. They wanted to become like Abba Yahuwah and wanted to raise themselves up in the heavens, and they wanted the worship for themselves. And so this is why he's saying that their land is filled with idols. They bow themselves to the work of their own hands. And so throughout the nations, look and see how many idols, how many sports idols is there alone? How many movie idols is there alone? How many different kinds of idols that is in ministry, that is in movies, that is in sport, that is in professors and scientists, and all these people that become such idols, and we raise them up, and then we put our trophies up on our walls because look at what we have achieved. And we can become gods unto ourselves. And the lowly bows down, and the high is humbled. Therefore, you do not forgive them. Sure. So once again, just like he said to Jeremiah, don't even pray for them. He's not going to forgive them if they don't repent and turn from their wicked ways and come lower and understand that everything that the Father has given them is for the glory and the honor of his name, and he's to be the one exalted in everything and not ourselves. But you see, if you look at the world system, they have created education so that the children that excel in academic ways, they excel in the world, and they are the ones that will get the titles, and they are the ones that will have all the titles attached to their names. But the ones that maybe are not as bright, what titles do they have? But sometimes they too become great because they might have a talent in sport, or they might have a talent that is maybe in the musical arts. And so then we use our gifts and we make money out of it. And everything that the Father has given us becomes about us being seen and us being heard and us being known. Wow, this is what it's all about. And so he says, enter into the rock and hide in the dust because of the fear of Yahuwah and the splendor of his excellency. We need to hide in shame because of what we have done in this world that he's given us to be able to reign and rule over, to make his name be great. And yet at the end of the day, there's these great empires and all these great things that are raised up and monuments in honor of man, when the only one that we should honor is the Father. Wow. And he says, the lofty looks of man shall be humbled, the pride of men shall be bowed down, and Yahuwah alone shall be exalted in that day. So you see, the Father is going to bring destruction upon all of this at the end of the day. And we are going to look at this because this is exactly what he's going to do in Revelation chapter 6. He is going to humble man. He's going to shake every foundation, every lofty thing that we have raised up above him is going to be shaken and brought low. And so we look and we see where he says, and against all the cedars of Lebanon that are high and lifted up, and against all the oaks of Bashan, and against all the high mountains, and against all the hills that are lifted up. So what are the high mountains and the high hills? All these skyscrapers, in all these, you got these nations and they have these skyscrapers. Take New York, I've been to Singapore, and you see all these skyscrapers. Well, already the Twin Towers have come tumbling down. And so there's going to be the shaking that's going to bring down all these idols. And if you take, you'll take these big statues that they put in these places, and they raise up all these idols, and it's all in honor of man. and nothing is about the Father. And against every lofty tower, and against every strong wall, and against all the ships of Tarshish, and against all the desirable craft. And the loftiness of man shall be bowed down. The pride of men shall be brought low, and Yahuwah alone shall be exalted in that day. So we must understand all the building, this is just like the Tower of Babel. When they erected this Tower of Babel, Father came and destroyed that tower, and he brought confusion upon man, confused their tongue so that they would not come into unity to be able to raise themselves up to become like Yahuwah. And if we look and we see, where are we right now? This is exactly what it's about. Man has now become the most evil that you could get, because now man is creating its own hybrid beings. They are creating man mixed with animals. They are doing genetically modified, they bring in genetically modified food. They bring in genetically modified animals. Everything is genetically modified. And now even human beings are no longer having the makeup and the DNA of their creator, of Abba Yahuwah, the one who created the heavens, the Shamayim and the earth, the Eretz. No longer is he the one that is going to be able to control man, because what do they want to do? Their whole plan is to be able to, man wants to control man, so that they destroy that gene in us that gives us that desire within us to worship a Yahuwah, to worship Alua, to worship a Alua, to worship a creator who gave us breath. And this is the very thing that they're wanting to destroy, that gene that is within us. And so, and it says, and the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the pride of men shall be brought low, and Yahuwah alone shall be exalted in that day. And the idols completely pass away. So you see, all these idolatrous things will pass away. And this is exactly, the Father gave us an opportunity, which is what I keep saying when I keep speaking, and we've discussed it how many times in Revelation chapter 20. If we look at the white horse, and if the white horse was really this crown that came about with this pestilence that came upon the earth, to be able to start off something in its tracks, in its process, then you must understand that mankind was given an opportunity, because all our idolatrous ways were stripped from us, for man to bow their knee and to say, now is time that I come aside and seek the one who has given me breath in my body, the one who has the authority to give life and take life. No one else except him. But what did man do? Short-lived. So therefore he says the idols are completely passed away. And they shall go into the holes of the rocks and into the caves of the earth from the dread of Yahuwah and the splendor of his excellency when he arises to shake the earth mightily. So you must understand, man shall be destroyed and humbled. He has a day when he is going to stand. There's a day when the Father is going to stand against the pride, against the arrogance, and he alone, if he kicked Hasatan out of the heavens and threw him onto the earth, what makes us think, because of his pride and his arrogance, what makes us think that we can continue in our pride and in our arrogance? And so therefore, we go have a look, and we see in Revelation chapter 6, because what we have just read here, from verses 14 to verses 19, it is basically, this is where we are going to have a look at. This lines up with Revelation chapter 6. So let's go look at Revelation chapter 6, And we look at it from verse 12. And I looked, and when he opened the sixth seal and saw, a great earthquake came to be, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of the heavens fell to the earth, as a fig tree drops its unripe figs, being shaken by a strong wind. And the heaven departed like a scroll, being rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. And the sovereigns of the earth, and the great ones, and the rich ones, and the commanders, and the mighty, and every slave, and every free one, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him sitting on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, because the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand? So do you see, he has his day of when he's going to shake the heavens and the earth, and he's going to bring his judgment upon all those rich ones and the commanders and the mighty ones and all these that have raised themselves up and created great monuments for themselves, no different to King Nebuchadnezzar. And so this is why I'm saying this is exactly what the Father is going to do, because he says, in that day, man shall throw away his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which they made, each for himself, to worship the moles and bats. So he's going to shake the heavens and the earth. And so you see, we are reaping for ourselves silver and gold on this earth and all the riches of this earth that is only going to be able to be shaken with what is coming. And our silver is not going to be able to help us, and our gold is not going to be able to help us. And all the idols that we have put all our pride and faith in is not going to help us. And even the idol of medicine that people have, that has been created, this idol of pharmakia that has been created, that has brought people into the greatest destruction, is going to be shaken. And so you see, in that day, man shall throw away his idols of silver and gold, which they made each for himself, to worship to moles and bats. And so we see that, he says, to go into the clefts of the rocks and into the crags of the rugged rocks because of the fear of Yahuwah. So see, is that not exactly what we read here in Revelation chapter 6 in verse 5? And the sovereigns of the earth and the great ones and the rich ones and the commanders and the mighty, every slave and every free one, hid themselves in the caves in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, from the face, hide us. It says, fall on us and hide us from the face of him sitting on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. So you see, they go into the clefts of the rocks and into the crags of the rugged rocks because of the fear of Yahuwah and the splendor of his excellency when he arises to shake earth mightily. And this is what he's doing. He's going to shake the heavens and the earth mightily. Cease from man whose breath is in his nostrils, for in what is he to be reckoned upon? So who is man that he should be reckoned upon? Who is man that he should be elated? Who is man that he should think that he is the creator? Because right now, this is what man has done with pharmakia, and this is what man has done with science, and this is what man has done with their great empires, and this is what man has raised up for themselves. And if we look and see, we are in the same time like it was, where we're going to look at quickly here in Daniel. Let's just go to Daniel chapter 3, as I was reading this earlier, and it really spoke volumes to me. And if you look and see, in Daniel chapter 3, Nebuchadnezzar, he has a dream, and in this dream, he sees a very specific vision, and in this vision, when he gives the vision, then Daniel comes and he interprets the vision. And, sorry, it's in Daniel chapter 4. And so he interprets this vision in Daniel chapter 4. And Daniel, in the visions of my head on my bed, I looked and I saw a watcher, even a set-apart one, coming down from the heavens. So a watcher is an angel. And he cried aloud and said this, hew down the trees, cut off its branches, strip off its leaves, and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts flee from under it, and the birds from its branches, but leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and bronze, in a tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of the heavens, and let his portion be with the beasts on the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, let him be given the heart of a beast, and 7 times pass over. This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the command by the word of the set-apart ones, so that the living know that the Most High is ruler in the sovereign of men, and gives it to whomever he wishes, and sets over it the lowest of men. I'm reading from Daniel chapter 4, from verses 10 to 17. So then he comes to Daniel, and he says, but you are able for the Spirit. So he asks Daniel in order to bring the interpretation. He says, but you are able, for the Spirit of the set-apart Halua is in you. And so Daniel comes and he brings the interpretation. And so he says, and the sovereign saw, and from verses 23, and he says, and the sovereign saw a watcher, even a set-apart one, coming down from the heavens, and he said, hew down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump of the roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and bronze in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with dew of the heavens, and let the portion be with the beasts of the field, till 7 times pass over. Verse 25, that you are going to be driven away from men, and your dwelling will be with beasts of the field, and you will be given grass to eat like oxen, and you be wetted with the dew of the heavens. 7 times pass over you, till you know that the Most High is the ruler. The Most High is the ruler in the reign of men, and that he gives it to whomever he wishes. And so he's giving him this, he's telling him this, and he's saying in verse 27, therefore, O sovereign, let my counsel be acceptable to you, and break off your sins by righteousness, and your crookednesses by showing favor to the poor, your prosperity might be extended. So you know what? Repent. Do right before the Father. It could be that he's going to relent, and he's going to be able to allow you to rule a little bit longer. And listen to what happens. At the end of the 12th month, verses 29, at the end of the 12th month, he was walking about the palace of the reign of Babel. So you see, this is what the kingdom of Babel does. This is the kingdom of Babel. It's all about self, and self being on the throne. And it's all about elating self. And this is the kingdoms of this world. This kingdom of this world, everything that it's given us from the time of a child is to be able to make us become great. It's not to lift up Yahuwah, but it's to be able to lift up man, and for man to become great in their own eyes, be it through their work, be it through their sport, be it through whatever it is. It's about man being lifted up, not man coming lower, but man being lifted up. That's why you got all these sports, and when you've got these, let's look and see, when they have these athletics, and then it's these, they get given these honoring, and then it's the flame, and it's to raise up man, and then man gets elated, and then it's the sport, and they become icons, and then children have cards of them, and children worship them, and revere them, and want to become like them. When at the end of the day, the one that we should be wanting to become like is like Yahushua. And so Shaul said, follow me as I follow Yahushua. So he had a tall order to say, I am going to follow Yahushua. So if you follow me, I'm following Yahushua. Not follow me because I am this great sports star so that you can become a sports star like me. Or look and see, I am the top scientist that you can become a scientist like me. Or look at me, I am now a professor. So now what have we done? Now we've been able to take even the simple word of the Father, the gospel that was given, the Bible that was given, and now we give titles to people like Professor so-and-so and another professor and Doctor so-and-so, because we all want titles. And what do titles do? It just puffs up man, puts man in a place. And now listen to what the sovereign of Babel does. And the sovereign spoke and said, is not this great Babel, which I myself have built, for the house of the reign, by the might of my power, and for the esteem of my splendor? So how many people in pride and arrogance have their companies and have their everything that they built, and they said, look at what my hands have made. No, your hands didn't make anything if it wasn't for the Father putting breath in your body. He's the one that's given you the ability to create wealth. And that wealth was not supposed to be for yourself and for your kingdom. That wealth was supposed to be for the glory and the honor of his name. The word was still in the sovereign's mouth. So you see, he's elating himself and saying, look at my power and what I've created in my kingdom. And the word was still in the sovereign's mouth when a voice fell from the heavens, Sovereign Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the rain has been taken away from you, and you are driven away from men, and your dwelling is to be with the beasts of the field. You are given grass to eat like oxen. 7 seasons shall pass over you until you know that the Most High is the ruler in the reign of men, and he gives it to whomever he wishes. So understand, this is the Father now humbling the sovereign. Why? Because he wanted to make himself great, and the Father was going to humble him, just like he's humbling his own people to say, you want to make yourself great? I am going to humble you for you to understand I am the only great one amongst you. You are not great in your own eyes. You are to elate me. You are to exalt me. I am the one that is to be exalted in everything. And so look at verse 34. And at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to the heavens, and my understanding returned to me, and I blessed the Most High. So why does the Father bring judgment in our lives at times? Why does he bring a shaking? Why does he do all of that? To humble us, to return back to him, to exalt him as being great in our lives. And praised and made himself great, who lives forever, whose rule is an everlasting rule, and his reign is from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are of no account, and he does as he wishes with most of the heavens and among the inhabitants of the earth, and there is none to strike against his hand or say to him, what have you done? But now in Christianity, people want to point fingers at him, demand and command from him that he must do this and he must do that. And we make ourselves great and we command and demand from him who is the creator of the Shamayims, of the heavens, and of this land, Eretz. What have we done and what are we doing? And so he ends in verse 37 of Daniel chapter 4, and it says, and now I, Nebuchadnezzar, am praising and exalting and esteeming the sovereign of the heavens, for all his works are truth and his ways right. And those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. So this is everything about the chapter 2 of Isaiah is tied into this Daniel chapter 4, because at the end of the day, even though the Father is the one who raised up the sovereign, but the sovereign was not to raise himself up. So what did the Father do? He brought him and humbled him, so that he would understand that there was no one other than him, than Abba Father. Because why? Nebuchadnezzar went and built himself a statue and wanted everybody to bow down to him. And this is what the kings of the world want to do, want us to bow down to them, want us to worship their systems and their ways. But the only one that we worship is the Creator of heaven and earth, Abba Yahuwah himself. So, may we learn the lessons of this chapter to understand Father is going to shake everything that man has created that was not from him. It's all going to fall. So may Abba bless you all. Shalom, shalom.